Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Ms. Kamini Patta, Dr. Sheetal Bhula, Mr. Sipiwem Chunu, Mr. Piyush Khandelwal, distinguished guests and online viewers. Namaskar and welcome to episode 2 of Pravasi Samvaad or Diaspora Dialogue. Interacting with the two very beautiful and dynamic ladies, and that is Ms. Kamini Pata and Dr. Sheetal Bhula. Indeed, just a little brief background about Sheetalji. Sheetalji is a UK Zen academic and research scholar and holds 2 master's degrees and a PhD in social sciences. And of course, our guest speaker needs no introduction, and that is the vibrant Miss Kamini Patta, who is the winner of the 2nd season of Master Chef South Africa, host and executive producer of SAFTA-winning food and travel show Girl Eat World. Generally a hungry person, as she says. Today we welcome on episode 2 of Pravasi Samvaad, Miss Kamini Patta with Miss Dr. Bhula. Namaste and welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Hello.
Namaste and warm welcome. So wonderful to have the presence of Kamini Patta with us, and thank you for gracing us today.
Thank you,
back, life, and tell us from your lens of the world as a chef. Describe life to us, what your perceptions are, how you understand your life through the world of food.
I don't really consider myself to be a chef because MasterChef is an amateur cooking competition. But as someone that has a very keen interest in food and not just eating it, but preparation, it makes my life a lot easier. Because if you ever been like at the gym or like after class and you go, oh, I really want to, this is the thing that I want to taste. This is the thing that I want to eat. It's very easy for me to go home and design that exact plate of foods. I feel like that's given me a superpower, if you will.
Okay. And if you have to look at your course and your introduction into life as food, if I use different kind of perceptions or terminologies, culinary expert, cuisines, a flair for cuisines, a love for cuisines, the way you've incorporated into your life, there must have been challenges where you've had spurts of growth, developments, learning opportunities, anything, and ups and downs, anything you'd like to share with us that has invariably contributed to who you are today?
I think with any creative career, you sort of, everything you create is part of who you are. You're saying something about yourself through a movie, a piece of music, a piece of art, or a dish of food. And I think a huge learning curve for me was understanding that my creative output wasn't always pleasing to everybody, and being able to take on criticism and understand it and maybe not take it so personally. That was definitely a huge learning for me. From a business perspective, I started one of the first dark kitchens in South Africa 2 years ago. And it was a very short start and end of that business because it was pre-COVID. It was so a dark kitchen is restaurant quality food that is prepared in an offsite kitchen that doesn't have any retail. So it's all built on a delivery model where you would use any of the delivery services. And the meals were all macro weighted so that if you were health conscious, you'd be able to get your weighted sort of distribution of fats, carbs, and proteins. And it was basically for people who were very busy and that at the end of the day, they wanted to eat something that was going to deliver on all their health sort of requirements. And that was pre-COVID. And I think the idea was a little bit ahead of the curve. And that taught me a lot about understanding what market segmentation for one, and what your market needs, how big that market is, whether or not they're able to support whatever you've created. It also taught me a lot about humble pie because it was a very exciting experience, but also one that was quite taxing emotionally and financially, obviously, because these things cost.
And would you classify that one of your greatest adversities you've really recently experienced one of your biggest challenges? You want to tell us a bit and go into that space?
I think that was definitely
Hands up.
challenging because we tried to use my personal brand as MasterChef winner and Go Eat World and that whole profile to be able to sell meals. And so when the entire thing imploded, it was a knock-on effect on my personal brand as well. Also, I mean, like I was saying, everything you create as a creative person is an expression of self. And so when that's not received very well, your self-esteem does take a bit of a knock. So it was definitely a bumpy ride.
And I think maybe we could add to that the fact that you realize the value and how to placate the opinions of others. And I think this leads to a very pertinent next question, which I want to know about the role of your close networks around you, your support structure, your family, your friends.
I mean, none of this would have been possible without the support of my family. We are a very closely knit, extended family. I'm close with my aunts and uncles and cousins as well. And I don't know, from my perspective, you have to be close to your family. You don't like certain things about certain people in your family, but you're still close to them anyway. In terms of friends, I'm not one of those people that's got lots of friends. I have a couple of really close friends, and it's been important through this journey because I think being on TV, there can be a lot of hot air that gets blown into your general vicinity, and you can either like increase the size of your ego and let that float away with yourself, or you have people that keep you grounded. And I've got a younger brother, and I think like all younger brothers, they like to poke fun at you. And my brother always makes sure that I don't get too serious about myself and about what I'm doing, as only a younger brother can do.
I think that's the role that most of us experience from our younger brothers. I too got a younger brother. And I think this is very nice flow. I mean, you spoke about now, we've mentioned now one value in your life, and that is, of course, the valuable relationships that you share with your family. Tell us about your other values.
I think to value your body, I am a qualified yoga instructor. I went to India in 2008 and I studied in Kerala. And I think you need to value your physical presence and take care of it, which means you exercise and you eat well and respect yourself. I think you need to value your mind and always make sure that you're feeding it with new information and crafting ideas in your head. And that doesn't always have to mean academic crafting. That is about expressing yourself artistically. That's about, you know, in this world of multimedia, that's about watching things that, well, watching things that happen in places that you might never get to, or things that make you change your perspective in life. And I think between your sort of, well, like I think between all of those aspects, you kind of need to balance them out in a way.
And so we touched a bit on worldview. And if I had to ask you, I hope I'm not taking you down the mill here, but if I had to ask you about culture and your worldview on cultures, before we move across to Indian culture. So I would say impact in your life and how you in particular as an individual and individual space relate to that.
I've been traveling internationally with my parents since I was quite young, and so I was very lucky to be able to experience other cultures as a child. And I took that along with me on my show Girl Eat World. So on MasterChef, I was cast as the blogger. And so on the TV show, I got to travel to 10 international destinations and meet with food bloggers in those various cities. And then, I mean, I got a personalized tour of that city with the food blogger, and you got to find out, you know, what the people were eating and go to like little dive bars where you got a special thing that you weren't going to find on a TripAdvisor or some sort of like mainstream travel network. So I have a deep appreciation for different cultures. What I found on that show, interestingly, was that people move. As an example, we went to Lima, Peru, and in Peru they've got a dish called lomo saltado, which is stir-fried steak and vegetables with soy sauce. And then you're going, but why is there a wok in the middle of Peru? Why is there soy sauce? And it was because at some stage there were Japanese immigrants that lived in Peru. And so even though those people aren't there, parts of their food culture remain. And it's very much like intricately woven into the Peruvian landscape of food, which I found incredibly interesting.
I think if I engage with you now, just in an academic space, if you look at missionaries, migrants internationally, people have always been taking food with them to places. And I think, for example, if you go back to our roots in particular, if you look at how the Durban curry has, where its original roots are, and the value it places today in the tourism industry, that alone is an example of migrancy and migrancy of foods in particular. And you'll find this with missionaries historically, people and food moving around. And of course, I think that adds to our own unique diversity in terms of cosmopolitan cities, a blend of cultures, our melting pots. But if you have to go back to your roots and your heritage and understanding your Indianness, how would you discuss the role of your Indian heritage and culture in your life?
I've always struggled with my sense of Indian identity because I was always the token at school, and we weren't particularly culturally oriented growing up. And I had very short hair, and I liked different things, and I went to different schools, and I was always like a little bit of an oddball within like very specifically Indian spaces. But I think that at the time I was sort of given quite a prescriptive idea of what feeling your Indian heritage was supposed to look and feel like. And I think what I've learned over the years is that it's not one specific thing, or you don't have to like color within certain lines to be able to feel Indianness. And I think my Indian culture for me is very personal. And I think my explorations in the food space specifically is where I found that identity, because it's things like if I eat idli and sambar, I'm then linked to my father's side of the family, and they're all Tamilians. And actually, one of my aunts just passed away, and she was the lady that would make both the sweet and savory idli. So when I was in India, I was like, oh, cool, these are my people because we're eating the same food. And so for me, that was the link that really touched home for me.
Any other attributes in your life or personal habits that you can identify to just a sense of being Indian, other than your cuisine and your mainstream form of expression?
I think Indian culture is quite special in the way that you understand who a person is in someone's life by the term that you call them. So if you've got your amma and your tata, if in Gujarati you've got your foiba, you've got like certain naming practices that I quite enjoy that I still like to keep up with.
Yeah, I think we must always give kudos to the fact that our heritage allows that spaces, and it allows a culture of community living, extended families, allows to express forms of respect in our vernaculars. So yes, I hear you. I mean, I don't know if I look also, but even people in our community younger than our generation still use those terms as a form of love, as a communicative expression of love by showing respect by using the correct terminologies for aunt and uncle.
Definitely.
Anything in particular you want to spell out to the generations behind you that are going to aspire to reach the various experiences you've had, the various forms of expression? Of course, having the courage, more importantly, to be as expressive as you are in the form of writing, cuisine, blogging, and of course, incorporating the modern life with it, modernization and everything. What would you say to the youth out there?
I think something that I had to grow into was that being different is okay, that being a little bit weird is okay. And I think that people need to lean into that a little bit. I think I grew up at a time where, and I think this is just like a general sort of teenageness. You want to find your tribe and you want to like be very much like those people. You'll see, this made me funny pre-COVID, made me laugh. Pre-COVID, you would see groups of young girls on breakup day in civvies, but they were all kind of wearing kind of the same thing. And so I think what I would want to say to the younger generation is it's okay to be different, and you need to find out what your difference is and find find the value in it, because I think that's when I started to really flourish as a person, when I started to value my differences instead of like silently punish myself for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your words they are very appropriate and realistic. And I mean, there's so much inspiration out there, and often we come across this. We talk about how don't compare yourself to everybody else. We all on different journeys. People reach different growth spurts at different spaces. The same goes for spiritual paths, for career paths, for personal growth as well. Now, any highlights in your career that you want to touch on? And then, if we must go further, where to from here? What do you aspire? What do you still feel you want to do? Where you want to go?
Oh, there's so much I still want to do, but I would say in terms of highlights, besides MasterChef, which obviously gave me the platform and gave me a voice to be able to do the thing, because for years before that I had wanted to shoot a TV show and tell stories about food, but it was MasterChef that gave me the voice and the platform to be able to do that. And then in 2015, my food travel show Girl Eat World won a SAFTA, and then it was broadcast on Netflix North America, which is huge for South African production. It's still fighting the world on Discovery World as a channel. I've also got to represent brands. Like as an example, I am a runner, and I got into running because the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon invited me to be one of their ambassadors for the campaign, and um, it was like I don't think I would have been able to do those sorts of things without MasterChef and without my commitment to trying to like live this sort of healthy lifestyle through food and through my experience. But I think that specific value is something I'd like to take forward into. I've just signed a book deal, so my book will be about modern Indian cuisine. So quite similar to the content that I published last year with my ebook, Eat Local. And that will be out in May 2022. I've also put together a treatment for a new TV show, because I think Indian food specifically hasn't really been commoditized the same way that like pizza or pasta or sushi or hamburgers or whatever else kind of has. So, and I think that also people think that curry is curry, but they don't understand that in the South, it's more like tamarind and coconut milk and maybe some fish. And in the North, it's bread and not rice, and it's creams, and it's heartier food. And I'd like to be able to showcase India as a continent and show how the movement of the people through that region affected the different foods, and show that curry is not curry is not curry. But with the COVID-19 pandemic at the moment sort of wreaking havoc in India, I think it's going to be a little while until we can shoot that show. But the book will definitely be going forward, and I want to do a small range of spices. I think I've got a specific blend for a few spices that I think everyone, like garam masala and like general red masala, and like tea masalas and things like that. So that's the future plan for me.
Now that sounds very exciting. But I think going back, if you look at what has become, if you look at our cosmopolitan global fast foods, I think we can't also ignore the fact that those European states and the Americas of the world have gone forward with their food initiatives because they've had their multinational corporates behind them to promote them. They came through that kind of business initiative in terms of McDonald's, KFC's, Burger King, and all of that. And food in India has always been identified as soft power. So I think you're 100% correct. I think it's going to take individuals like you to actually just bring it and move it away from being a soft power and more of a more active power and more to the forefront. So
I do believe the in for this is now with the global phenomenon of veganism. Indian food for centuries has been mainly vegetarian based. There are large communities within the Indian continent that have been vegetarian since birth. And so I feel like this is the time. The time is right now for Indian food to be on every plate.
no, and you know what? Absolutely. And I mean, if you may just take, for example, if you look at historically, look at the states in India, for instance, look at the state of Gujarat, a dry state, Rajasthan, dry state, and the bulk of those populations, they are vegetarian. So, we then again, we're going back to our sense of traditional heritage, our traditional diets, and And it's moving forward in a modernized global world, which I think is going to give you and I, people that have the edge of the Indian heritage, the edge, hopefully, standing, and we have the correct understanding of the role those spices and those dry legumes can play in our diets. Anything you want to share with us going forward? Any nice home cooking tips for a healthy diet? Anything to give us energy boosts? Anything to give us brain power? Anything you want to share with us?
Quite spur of the moment. I think that most Indian food is starts with a base of onions. And I think the tip to adding extra flavor to your food and adding depth of flavor to your food is don't rush the onions. Stand over them, add a little bit of salt before you leave, and just get them to that soft, beautiful space, and then your food will turn out perfectly.
Thank you so much. That is so well said.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Kamini ji and Sheetal ji, for that beautiful interaction and on this episode of Pravasi Samvaad. With that, we've come to the conclusion of episode 2, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Safiwa M. Chunu from the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban to render this evening's vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Greetings to all of you. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban, I am honored today to deliver a vote of thanks on episode 2 of our program, Pravasi Samvaad, the Diaspora Dialogue. Allow me to thank our online guest, Ms. Kamini Petaji, a South African chef, food blogger, television and radio personality. She had a sterling interaction, and the interactions were conducted by Dr. Sheetal Bulaji, an academic from University of KwaZulu-Natal. The interactions were very impressive, ma'am. Thank you very much to both of you, Kamini Petaji and Sheetal Bulaji. Dhanyabad, ma'am. Thank you. To Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Durban, Sristi Harinarayan, Sri Piyush Kandelwal, thank you very much for taking part on today's program. To all those who participated online, we'd like to say thank you very much. Please visit our Facebook page so that you'll be updated about all cultural activities organized by Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center in Durban. Once again, to Kamini ji and Sheetal ji, thank you. To all of you, have a wonderful evening. Namaskar.